Hey guys, it's Captain Aaron here. I've been sharing a lot of content lately about our race preparations for the Washington 360, but today I wanted to actually take a second to talk to you a little bit about what the Washington 360 race is, what it's all about, the history of it, and some of our preparations that we're doing for it. So, to get right into it, the Washington 360 is a product of the Northwest Maritime, and they are maybe most famous for their Race to Alaska, which is a race starting in Port Townsend going up to Ketchikan, Alaska, about 750 miles. And the rules are pretty simple. You cannot have an engine on your boat. Your boat must be legally allowed to be on the water, and no external support. And that's resulted in a pretty outrageous fleet of boats that come together. Anything from stand-up paddleboards to 40-foot monohulls and lots of stuff in between. Little trimarans, big trimarans, kayaks. And in 2021, COVID essentially shut down this race, which used to be run every year. So to make up for that, they came up with a new race called the Washington 360 that kept everything within U.S. territorial waters. Essentially, the name has a double meaning. The race is about 360 miles, although it's actually closer to 330. But it does almost a 360-degree loop through the Puget Sound, hitting some of the most interesting areas. So I'll go over here to our map that we've created. This is a bit more detailed than the one that they have. The first leg is from Port Townsend all the way down to Olympia. This is about 100 miles. This is actually the same route in reverse that is the Salish 100, which is a small boat flotilla that they run every year, only boats under 22 feet. So from Olympia, it then travels back north, covering much of the same distance, but headed instead towards Goat Island. Once at Goat Island, this creates a decision. You can either go through the Swinomish Canal here, which is a very narrow channel, also very shallow on the north end here in Padilla Bay, or you can go through Deception Pass, which has notoriously dangerous currents there. Definitely need to time that right with the wind and the waves. Either way you go, you have to end up heading back north to Bellingham Bay. There's a buoy there, before finally heading to the penultimate point of Point Roberts, which is just at the southern end of Canadian border there, and then finally backtracking through the Orca Islands, through the Juan de Fuca Strait, and finally back to Port Townsend. So yeah, that's about 330 miles. You have 2 weeks starting in June 28th to complete the race. Unlike the Race to Alaska, you do not have to take the motor off your boat. So you can keep the motor on. They're going to lock it out, but it's available if you need it in case of emergency. You will be disqualified. Or if you're going to render aid to somebody who needs it, then you can radio into the race headquarters, tell them that you're rendering aid, go help them, and then come back to your original position and then stop using your motor again. So it provides a little bit more of a safety buffer. Other than that, the rules are the same, and the fleet is even more outrageous than previous. So because it isn't so remote, and you don't have all the logistics of going to Alaska and then getting back, you have 91 teams this year, which is a crazy fleet. 18 of them are considered muscle only, so they are not allowed to use any sails or any propulsion that isn't either hand or foot pedals or something like that. So, for example, if you're a kayaker and you deploy like a downwind sail, you would automatically be upgraded to the wind division at that point. In the wind division, there's 73, and a lot of teams that have already done the Race to Alaska previously. Looking at some of the other count there, so 256 racers total amongst those teams. 12 26 of those teams are solo sailors. So I thought it'd be interesting to actually look at some of the teams that they have here. We have the race results from 2021. So you can see monohull, multi-hull, all coming in at 4 days. 5 days, we have the first muscle power boat right at 5 days. More monohulls, 5, 6, 7 days. 8 days for a lot of these slower boats here. And then a few people that didn't quite make it through. Yeah, Reek and I have been preparing a lot, and I've sort of set some personal goals for myself for the race. And one of the goals I've set for myself is to do 50 miles per day, which would mean that we would complete it in about 7 days. That is a conservative goal, so I'm hoping that we can actually do it much faster if we have the wind for it. We won't know until we get closer. A few other goals I have for myself: I'd love to place in the top 30. I would also love to not be beaten by a muscle-powered boat. So I think that would be, I think those are all achievable goals, and we'll see how we do. So in terms of decision making, I wanted to break down the race a little bit. The race starts June 28th at 11 a.m. That's actually an ebb tide at that moment. So you have all of the Puget Sound exiting out this little mouth right here. So if you just poke your nose out here and you don't have enough wind, you're just going to get flushed out. And even if you do have the right wind coming in, you're going to get wind over waves, which is a phenomenon that really stacks up waves, making them quite steep and quite close together, which, at least for my boat, is not ideal. So I think at the very first step, it's going to make a lot of sense to just run due south towards the canal. This is about 5 miles, and we're going to get there just as the tide is switching around 12:30. That's going to allow us to scoot through here and come out here just as the rest of the ebb tide is ending, and we start to ride a flood tide in around 1 o'clock. Now hopefully if we get some good wind, we're just going to ride that all the way south. Maybe to Blake Island as our goal for the day, or maybe a little bit further. At 9 to 10 o'clock, that's when the flood tide ends around here, and we start to get the water flowing back out the other direction, out towards the north. So we definitely want to make as much time as possible, and that's kind of going to be one of the rules for myself. If the wind's blowing, we're on the boat. We're just trying to make distance, because anytime we can make distance under sail, that's way easier than trying to row. Once we get through the Tacoma Narrows, which is the first big tidal gate here, we do fight a lot of tidal currents through these islands here. Nisqually Reach, I think Blake Passage, somewhere around there. Even this little area here can have quite a bit of current, but less so than the Tacoma Narrows. Round the Shoal Buoy and then turn around and head back out the other way. One thing to know about the Puget Sound weather is that you have wind coming in from the north and wind coming in from the south around these Olympics here. And they generally form a convergence somewhere around Tacoma to Seattle. Now, early in the day, the north tends to win, pushing you down. Later in that day, with the ground heating up here, it's pulling in more wind, and it builds in strength and starts to push to the south, and it will push all the way up here. So riding those waves of air almost will be really critical. Again, my boat doesn't point that well, so having a following wind or a reach will be really helpful to make good distance. Well, coming in here, we have less current, but we still have some coming into Skagit Bay. At first, I was thinking that Deception Pass would be the way to go, but what you have to think about, you want to ride this on an ebb current, but you come out here at an ebb current, and now you have all of this water coming out here that's also ebbing. So the only time you'd really want to ride the ebb is right before slack. So you come through here, it's ebbed, and now you've got the water maybe turning around and coming back the other way and pushing you this way. Trying to get that timing could be pretty tight. So to me, the Swinomish Channel here makes a lot more sense. It's about 9 miles, so we can row that in 2 or 3 hours. We come out to Padilla Bay, which a lot of boats won't like because it's incredibly shallow in here. It's very easy to run aground. This is all man-made and has to be dredged every few years, and they just don't keep up with it. For our boat, it only has about 1 foot to 2 feet of draft underneath, so we don't really care about low water. So this could make a lot of sense. It's actually a few miles shorter than going out and through these islands here too. So once we come into Bellingham Bay, this area is pretty quiet. We don't have too much there, and a lot of the current here starts to get a lot more mild, and in fact the prevailing current seems to be pushing more north through this area here. We get into a bit of open water through the Strait of Georgia in this area. So we'll have to watch weather. We don't want to be out exposed if a big system comes through that could be sending a lot of wind and waves. As well, there's not really too many places to run and hide here. So we want to be able to go out, and this is almost 25 miles here, so Point Roberts could be a point to stop at. And then get ready to turn around and come back. On the way back, there are some beautiful marine parks here that could be just, pretty once-in-a-lifetime opportunities to stop at and maybe set up a tent and just enjoy sort of a last day, wait for the correct timing to go through. This is the Rosario Strait here. And then this is what I'm most worried about, this back end of the Strait of Juan de Fuca. Gales come through here all the time, which are going to create some pretty nasty waves. And waves and wind, which we have to be pretty careful about. Small boat, it's definitely dangerous. Not really too many places to run and hide. We've got Shelter Island right here, which might be our best bet, although I wouldn't count on that. Everything else is going to be a lee shore here. The other thing we have to think about is as we come in, we want to hit the timing of a flood tide. So we want this to be ebbing, so pushing us out. And then we want it to switch about 3/4 of the way through so that then we get the water pushing us back in, maybe the wind pushing as well, making for a fast final run. So it's all about timing with this race. Being in the right place at the right time, knowing how fast your boat is going to go in conditions so you can plan to be where you need to be. So before I sign off here, I just wanted to share some of the prep that we've been doing. I've actually gone through and created a tide sheet for all of the key areas as we're going for about 2 weeks here. So I printed this off and laminated them, and then when I'm really tired, all I need to do is just look at these sheets and know exactly when the tide's ebbing. So here, for example, this is just off Port Townsend, June 28th. So we've got an ebb tide of 4.6 knots at 11 o'clock. Over here we have a calendar of all the different things we need to practice, gear, areas that we're going to go scope out. So we're about to head up north, and we're going to camp around some of these areas and scope them out. Got our to-do list. That's getting pretty small, which is great. Rika's kind of handled all our food. Checking out all the different boat yards for places to stop along the way, all the different supplies that we needed. We evaluated a whole bunch of different rowing seats. I'll talk about that in another video about the rowing setup that we've done. Getting dry suits for Rika. We opted to actually go for Fowlies, and I'll get into that maybe in another video, because finding Fowlies for Rika, who's quite petite, was very difficult. More information on the propulsion drives here. So, I mean, we've done a lot since November when we first decided to apply. So I hope you follow along. I hope this is interesting, and watch out for some more videos about some of the interesting prep that we've done, and follow us in the race. All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.